Good afternoon. Welcome to the second day of HKDI Inspire Design for Wellbeing online master lecture series. Hello. For those of you who have joined the lectures yesterday, we thank you for your continuous support. And for those who've missed it, please feel free to visit HKDI Facebook page for the recording. And all 3 days of lectures will be archived in HKDI channel of YouTube afterwards. This is now the third edition of HKDI Inspire Lecture Series. In 2018 and 2019, we focused on design thinking as a problem-solving tool or mindset applied to all walks of life. In 2020, a very special year for all of us, we hope to delve deeper into the people-centric aspect of design thinking in enhancing human well-being. This is very important as we all live longer nowadays. So how can we live better? And how should we face new challenges that keep arising and emerging all the time? Today, we are honored to have invited Mr. Richard Hall, Managing Director of PDM, a leading innovation and product design consultancy in the UK, and Mr. Lawrence LUI, co-founder of Longevity Design House and Longevity Technology in Hong Kong as our speakers. The lectures will be followed by a project sharing by Mr. Edwin Wong, HKDI lecturer, who would also moderate a panel discussion with Mr. Hall, Mr. LUI, and our special guest, Ms. Angelique Tam, Executive Director of the Society for the Aid and Rehabilitation of Drug Abusers, in short, SADA, our project collaborating partner. You are more than welcome to leave your questions for our speakers using the Q&A function of Zoom video webinar or post them on live broadcast of HKDI Facebook page. Without further ado, I shall pass the virtual stage to Mr. Richard Hall for his keynote, Human-Centered Design Masterclass.
Firstly, thank you for the invite to deliver a keynote speech here at the Hong Kong Design Institute. I have to say that Hong Kong is one of my most favourite cities in the world. I first visited Hong Kong almost 20 years ago when I was working with businesses in Diamond Hill and Chai Wan. I must have visited Hong Kong maybe 25 times in the last 20 years for both business and leisure purposes. Ideally, I would have liked to deliver this keynote speech at the Hong Kong Design Institute in person. However, as we know with the COVID-19 restrictions, it's not possible. But I guess on the positive note, we are conforming to social distancing rules and we are 9,527 kilometres apart. I'm delighted to share with you my views about design, well-being, and more importantly, human-centred design. In this keynote talk, I'll talk about strategies and theories, but I'll also share with you a particular case study where there's a large emphasis on human-centred design. Hopefully this talk will be of interest to designers, engineers, clinicians, health economists, and also academics. So here's the content of what I'm going to present today. Throughout the keynote, I'll refer to strategies which will enable you to obtain further insight about human-centred design. I also hope it will enable you to reflect on your particular area of work, research or study. I guess the first question is, what is human-centred design? Well, essentially it's to ensure that your innovation has the highest chance of success and being successfully adopted. For human-centred design, you need to understand the diverse cultural expectations, attitudes and local context. Technology is not the only part of the solution. It is vital to put people at the heart of innovation to ensure successful adoption and commercialisation. Although technology might make the idea possible, the demand for the product and services comes from the people. It's people that choose whether or not to buy the things that you are developing. They make the decisions based on the benefits and not the technology. Those decisions are formed by culture, perceptions, concerns and motivations. And it's very hard to understand those issues if you are sat at your desk. Not only does your product need to be technically feasible and commercially viable, but solutions also need to be desirable for the people that you are creating them for. Desirability goes far beyond whether something looks aesthetically pleasing to the eye. The basic themes of human-centered design are shown here. For example, does a solution meet a genuine need? Is it understandable? Is it easy to adopt? Is it aspirational? Does it fit with existing behaviour patterns? And does it take account of societal or cultural context? Human-centered design involves gathering insight and making discoveries. It's less about the data and secondary research, but more about conversations, interviews, workshops, observations, first-hand experiences. Often you'll learn more through just 3 conversations than a 300-person online survey. Good design is something that you don't even notice, as it just works without thinking. Here are some good examples exemplified by my design hero, Dieter Rams. If you think about it, you'll be able to consider bad examples of human-centered design throughout daily life. Something that you should consider as a design strategy is the double diamond principle. This is a well-known strategy which many of you will be familiar with. I'm not going to go into too much detail about this, but it's effectively 2 segmented diamonds which has a discovery, define, develop and deliver phase. The first part of the double diamond is about divergent thinking, so that is not to assume any aspect of the user need or the design brief. So it's essentially about insight on the first part of the double diamond. And then once you've got a problem definition, the second part of the double diamond is all about delivery. So now you've established what the problem is, the second part is what's the solution and how do we deliver on that solution. An important aspect of this is human-centered design. Design can be misunderstood and misrepresented. Many people think that it's a process which comes towards the end of a project, for example. The risk if design is not properly adopted is that the product will not be fit for purpose, it might be too expensive, and it might not be optimised. Or even worse, it might be a case of creating a solution to a problem that doesn't actually exist, or a product that nobody wants. We call this lipstick on a pig in design terms. One large aspect of design which many people do not properly address is human-centered design. Many people make sweeping assumptions that their product or process will be successful because it is highly advanced and technical and new. The reality is that the user is only interested in what the design or the product or the innovation actually does. They're not really interested in what it is. And I think the point here is there is a fine distinction between not getting too involved in the technology of an innovation and focus more about what value it gives to the user. Does it make the process quicker? Is it disruptive? Does it make life easier? And these are examples we can draw on well-being. Human-centered design isn't anything to get hung up on. Some people also know it as user-centered design, others as co-design. In medical device terms, it's called PPI, which stands for Patient and Public Participation. It's human factors into a product that makes it fit for purpose. And it's important at the early stage of a project to get real insight into the human behaviour. And by this, I don't mean talking to people that you already know. I'm talking about having real insight into early stage design thinking, getting to the coalface early. The notion of fail fast and fail cheap, and to constantly iterate. So human-centered design is about getting to the coalface and engaging with key stakeholders. Test those ideas, make discoveries, make mock-ups, make prototypes, test and get feedback. It's very difficult to have a conversation with someone to just explain how your idea could work. As soon as you put something tangible into the hands of a stakeholder, for example, a low fidelity prototype, it will spark up conversations and allow you to engage with your target user group. One thing to adopt is the principle of fail fast and fail cheap. Although this might sound counterintuitive, it's good practice to actively look for ways in which a design or an innovation can fail. That way you can look for points of weakness. This doesn't have to be human-centered design, but it could also be other aspects such as intellectual property, engineering capability, clinical efficacy, and so on. So here is something you should become familiar with. It's called the Gartner hype cycle. What it does is plot an innovation timeline from trigger points through to commercialization. And I'll go into more detail with this. So for every innovation, there has to be a trigger point. There has to be a reason why that project should be instigated. So examples of this could be it makes life easier for a particular patient, or it's a disruptive technology, or it has more efficacy, or other examples could be technological. Once you have the trigger point in the Gartner hype cycle, you kind of lead into the peak of inflated expectations. And this is where the technology all comes together and everybody gets really excited about that particular innovation. But soon enough, after the peak of inflated expectations, you could fall into the trough of disillusionment, otherwise known as the valley of death. And what this is essentially is by not having the process or people around it as to why a good idea could actually fail. Moving forwards from the trough of disillusionment, we've got the slope of enlightenment and plateau of productivity. So in the case of mitigating the valley of death or trough of disillusionment, it's always good to have a focus on things like human-centered design. As I mentioned earlier, sometimes good ideas can fail because there hasn't been a human-centered design approach. So something to consider is the Gartner hype cycle. It's a very familiar process. So here is a case study that I wanted to share with you in terms of a human-centered design approach. It also includes engineering, industrial design, and clinical input. So it's probably best to start by explaining the context of the project. In the developed world, we have a surgical procedure called laparoscopy. This is where surgery is carried out through ports in the abdomen. It's effectively called keyhole surgery. The way that lap surgery is carried out is to insufflate or to blow up the abdomen with CO2 gas. And what this effectively does is create an envelope within the abdomen where the surgeon can carry out surgery by moving out organs and articulating things out of the way so they can carry out surgery. And the real advantage of keyhole surgery or lap surgery is the recovery rate is far better. So here on this slide we show lap surgery with insufflation, as I mentioned, but also there's a new procedure called gasless, which has been developed over the last kind of 30 years. The project that we've got in India addresses keyhole surgery, but the problem with rural India is that there is a lack of CO2 gas to insufflate the abdomen. So an alternative to this is to have a medical device which fits into the abdomen and creates a lift. So it effectively has the same effect as insufflating the abdomen, but it's more of a mechanical solution. This gasless lap surgery was developed by a chap called Dr. Gunnaraj in India. The way that it's performed is that the patient has a spinal block to effectively temporarily paralyze the patient. Then the medical device is put through the abdomen and creates the mechanical lift. This is less crude and less sophisticated than gas surgery, but it still does the job. For someone who works in rural India, the benefits of gasless lap surgery are immense. If a father, for example, has had open surgery, the recovery rate is prolonged and he can't feed his family. It's as basic and as raw as that. So it's probably best to talk about the team around this project. In the UK, we have a team of engineers from the University of Leeds, and we also have the research arm of the NHS and also my design consultancy, PDM. In India, we have a team of clinicians and rural surgeons, and we've effectively kind of got a cross-party project where we've got insight clinically in terms of engineering and also commercialisation. Then there's the team at PDM. As the designers, our involvement is to be the glue which holds the whole project together. So we understand the clinical need, we implement the product development strategy, we ensure that the solution is human-centred. So the first aspect of the project is about insight. As I mentioned before, it's important to get to the coalface early, experience and understand the perspective of the user. In this case, the user are rural surgeons from India who perform the procedure. To do this, we went to Kolkata, scrubbed up and went into theatre. Part of the early stages of the project is to gain insight and observe and gain information to understand the challenges from the human-centred approach. We witnessed live procedures in theatre with the rural surgeons. What we needed to do was understand for ourselves the context of the problem and not be contaminated with a design brief. This is where, as a designer, we obtain really good insight and almost become a surgeon ourselves. What we needed to understand in this context is how the medical device is used, how it's sterilised, how it's deployed, what the sterile areas are and what the non-sterile areas are, what are the plus points for a surgeon, and what are the drawbacks. So here on this slide we can see an existing lap surgical device being used, and you can see that we've engaged with the rural surgeons. So after the procedures we interviewed them, not a formal process, more of an informal kind of chat to try and gain some more insight in terms of what was good about the product, where the problems were, what would make it better, what would make it cheaper, what would make it easier to sterilise, and so on. Without doing this process, it would have been impossible to create and articulate a problem statement for this particular project. By getting to the user in the coalface early, you can really gain good insight, which then allows you to create designs that are informed. So the next stages of the project were to create early stage design thinking. What we did was we created a large document which was effectively the problem statement, all the things that we'd learnt and gleaned from being in Calcutta. Then from that we can create an articulated design brief, and by doing that we have the confidence that we will be able to capture a good solution moving forwards. So here on the slides is the information about the data that we'd gathered, also the dissemination from the conversations that we had with the rural surgeons in India. And moving from that, the design brief. So as you can see, we've articulated 6 main themes on the design brief. So here on this chart, we can see something called the fog of uncertainty. A lot of people assume that developing products is a straight line from A to B with no issues or challenges. But as you can see on here, we have something called the fog of uncertainty. So whilst you're going in the right direction of travel in terms of innovating and designing products, it's perfectly okay to have this fog at the very early stages. And I think to assume anything else would be a dangerous place to be. What the fog of uncertainty does is chart the progress of a design from A to B to go through research, understanding, interrogation, convergence, ideate, iterate, focus and implementation. And as you can see on here, all of those phases have the inclusion of human-centered design. So human-centered design isn't something that starts at the beginning of a process. It's something that you track all the way through. So going back to the case study, we can see here we've carried out initial divergent thinking. So on the slide you can see some very, very early stage prototypes. What we are doing here are looking at resolving problems that were identified in Calcutta. We've got very basic 3D prints that allows us to get some idea of form and function and to engage with the clinicians. So from that, we carried out early stage design thinking. So the team at PDM, working with the engineers at the University of Leeds and the clinicians, we started to work through initial design principles and concepts, ultimately disseminating in 3D prints. Moving from that, we shared them with the team generally to get some initial feedback. And here you can see in the studio, we've got one of our initial design meetings. It's really important as you are developing a device to have continual human-centered input. And a good way to do this is with 3D prints. And here on this slide we have a box trainer. That's the rectangular shaped thing in the middle of the photograph. This effectively replicates the abdomen. So what it does, it allows us to carry out design development in-house. And because we've had the clinical insight, we can also carry out development of designs in the studio to move things forward. So from having an initial design, we then had to validate it by some means. What we did was invite the team of rural surgeons to the UK, and we went into a local hospital and carried out some initial trials. And that is always a really good aspect in human-centered design, to validate your design thinking to ensure that the problem statement and the design brief that you'd created are fit for purpose and effective. After that initial trial, then we carried on engineering development with the team at the University of Leeds and also the clinicians, and developed the product towards more of a proof of concept prototype. Then we went into cadaveric trials in India. So we went back out and took some developed prototypes, and we had a week working with the rural surgeons to carry out trials in cadavers to test the efficacy of that particular design. This was really the moment of validating on a larger scale our thoughts in terms of how to articulate that particular product. As you can see here on the slides, there was a lot of interest with the clinical team in India. There was a lot of focus on the design. A lot of testing went underway. So we've pretty much gone full circle. Then after the cadaveric trials, we then carried on and had some more formal interviews with the rural surgeons. So what we wanted to do was revisit the initial design brief, if you remember those 6 points that we'd picked up on, to see if it had efficacy, whether the device was fit for purpose, whether it could be sterilised, and the efficacy. Moving forward with that particular project, we've got through those stages and we're now looking at design for manufacture. Because it's a medical device for low to middle income countries, it's important that the manufacturer is in India too. So part of the process was to source and select, visit and interview manufacturers in India to see if they had the capability to manufacture this particular project. Just to wrap up, human-centered design is an important and intrinsic part of the process. I think the main takeouts to consider from this keynote is really adopt human-centered design from the start, but also to ensure that you adopt it all the way through the process. Also think about fail fast and fail cheap. So look at points of weakness in your particular design. Another aspect is to adopt strategies. So whilst we all know the double diamond design principle, also look at the fog of uncertainty and also the Gartner hype cycle. Thanks for watching. I hope that was of interest. Hopefully next time it won't be a pre-recorded webinar and I'll be able to meet you at the Hong Kong Design Institute.
Thank you, Richard. May we now have Edwin to share with us our student project with SADA, Design for Wellbeing and Organizational Change for Drug Abuse Rehabilitation.
1, 2. Okay. Hi, students and teachers, our guests. Welcome you to this forum. And before I start, a short sharing about the project we did last year about well-being design or design thinking. I want to ask you one question. What makes you happy when you do a design? What would make you happy when you make a design? I guess here I see like lecturer, fashion design lecturer, Victor here, and Kelvin Kim, he was here, right? Okay, student, again, what would make you happy when you make a design? Well, I tell you my answer. My answer is, if I see a good design that is for a person, that design make him or her happy, then as a designer, I would be very happy. Richard just talked about a human-centered design. All the design there for the needs or the desire of a human being. So today you will see the topic is, my topic is well-being design for SADA. In HKDI, we have a design thinking team led by our head, Mr. Michael Chen. Here, say hi. And also we have a team. Well, the team, we work on different projects like partnership projects and also education, like curriculum design. And tomorrow, there will be a sharing about education curriculum design by design thinking. So for this project, last year, we did this one for the organization of SADA, the Society for the Aid and Rehabilitation of Drug Abusers. And we were very lucky that we could participate in this like partnership project that was SADA was like a setup long time ago in '60. And you will see in here, we started the project by the design thinking, and also now I think in your study, we talk about project-based learning, which is about you're going to work on projects. They are authentic projects. They are, we call this real projects. And SADA is the one that our students, especially the DCD students, the brand design students, and also the user experience design students, they had a chance to participate in this real life project. And the project objectives was to implement design thinking in a like a PBL project, and also not only we tried to enhance the surface qualities and also of SADA, and also we want our students and also the teachers, the teaching team, we had a chance to enhance our way of teaching and learning. So the project was run like from September to September, an year. And we did implement the design thinking process and also adopt the PBL process into this very meaningful project. And well, as like Richard, he talked about the whole like double diamond thing and also the design thinking process. So I'm not going to focus on that process, but I will jump into the outcomes of this project. Like for example, like in December, the staff from SADA, they had different workshops about design thinking. And I trust from the workshop that the staff from SADA, they learned the innovation process as well as the quality of, or you would say the competences of creativity, collaboration, and also the project management qualities were enhanced. And in here, you will see, like during the workshop, we did touch on different areas like the service strategy, brand positioning, and also the staff development. And well, we hope like all these directions could be carried out later on to really see the end results of how this design thinking process could help the organization to move forward. And well, these are the process of the workshops. And you will see one of the quality of design thinking, like what Richard had shown us, is the collaboration. I think designers or design students, one of our ways of learning is very important about how we could collaborate with our partners. So in here, you will see the process was enhanced by this design thinking process. And you will see here are some, other than the competences were enhanced, and our students from DCD, some of the works were completed by our students. In here, like the brand design students, they came up with different approaches about how could the brand be enhanced in front of the public. This is, you will see the whole packages of this brand design was made. And one of the example, here the project named Baby and Me, because the SADA has a project to take care of the pregnant ladies, but they are drug abusers. So how could that project could be improved or could be promoted to the public to help more like a pregnant ladies, but like they are like drug abusers. So these are the ideas that we designed by the students. Some examples of promotions. Examples of promotion, even in the app design. And there are different like approaches other than the brand design. We could see here is the user experience design. And this term, user experience, I think is very important. Even well, you are a fashion designer or even you are a product designer, this term is applied nowadays in different like aspects or areas in our profession. So how could your design provide a new experience to your user? Is I think that's the first question of every designer should ask himself or herself. There's here is another example. The students, they came up with a set of cards to help the drug abusers. And another example is also a set of cards to help the drug abusers to be more like for them to share their life or experience to their peers or even their counselors. One of the tools that designed by students. And this one, we call this mirror card. Mirror card is one of the good examples for the counselors and also for the drug abusers. They can use to have a more effective interactive process in that like growing up process. And this cards, like now we have asked the students to produce a short video, and even the public or the commercial areas, the media, they did some like reports about how this mirror card can help this organization or help the project. And we are very happy about the results. because the students, they learned how to have that, the human-centered design approach by using the design thinking methodology, and in our education context, by using the PBL to complete a design task. And that task is for the community. And we call this direction well-being design. And we hope after all these lectures, in your learning of design, you will ask yourself two questions. How a design can make people happy, and how that design can make you happy as a designer. And if that answer could be that design is a well-being design, then I think all these lectures, we know we have done a job. Okay, thank you very much. And we know we have the third lectures, right?
Thanks, Edwin. May we now invite Mr. Lawrence LUI to speak for us on the concept and design of a sustainable aging community.
So good afternoon. Thanks for inviting me to speak here, to talking about like the concept and design for the aging community. So I mean, waiting for my PowerPoint, I just want to introduce the background of our social enterprise. I'm Lawrence from the Longevity Design House. We set up for 5 years. Initially, we target to revolutionize the aging at home design experience for our client. Why I say that it rationalize? Because there's a lot of service gap. As caregiver, I take care of my late father when he got the late-stage lung cancer. So I share like how I identify the service gap, and then we design the process to check this problem, and generally from interior design, how we integrate with the technology aspect as well as the social capital aspect to close the social the service gap in Hong Kong. So okay, so I will tell you. So first of all, as I mentioned, our background, longevity design, how is compounding longevity, 長壽 and aging at home, and that's the the great model is the element how we identify our partners, and even when we do the interview for our next generation interior designer, how we select them to join my team. And the background and longevity design actually got like 3 domains. The first domain is about design and build, which including our interior designer, occupation therapist, the site manager, supervisor, and we got a technology with a team of IoT program developers, UI UX developers, and last but not least, we also are commonly because like 35% of our profit will donate to our charity foundation, and we will do the match fund with other family foundations. So we got a charity and we serve the underserved community. So today to expect, I will highlight 3 points, how to identify the service gap. Because for your information, I actually trained and work as a advertising agency before I jumped into the interior design aspect. So I somehow do self-learning and work with my interior design team to come up this idea. And secondly, I will share like how we work with some startup particularly the technology startup to build a whole ecosystem. And I will also tell you some our hand-on experience on how we do some social project. So for the journey, we start. This is my late father. 7 years ago, he got suddenly feel ill, and then he sent to the hospital, and he stayed the hospital for the first month. The doctor actually didn't know what's happened, but my father just like the health of him deteriorated very fast, and also he because he loved eating a lot. The food in hospital is very bad, so he declined to eat. And secondly, the laws didn't allow him to get out of the bed and go to the toilet himself. But he is such a person who cares dignity and self-esteem. So there's a lot of conflict between the nurse and my father. And as I'm the only child, I got the phone call from the nurse like 10 to 20 times a day. Hey, Mr. Lui, come to the hospital at once. Your father got some troubles. So that's the I mean ping pong as a caregiver. But after that, the doctor told my father that, hey, Mr. Lui, you got late-stage lung cancer, and your life actually counts by month. And that's the first time I saw my father crying. And his only, I mean, he begged me for the first time is, hey, I want to back home to enjoy my life of, I mean, the few months of my life. But what's happened? I live in Shao Ki Wan, which is a old building, over 40 years. Of course, the lift lobby is not accessible. But when we also talk at, I mean, the living room and the toilet, I think it's quite common for those who live in a building over 20 years. The toilet will have the high-rise bathtub. And because of the storage issue, usually we will buy the bed with more storage. So you will see that my dad need to, I mean, while on the wheelchairs, he did some oxygen equipment and such. And, you know, both my mom and myself need to work during that time. So the thing is, there's a lot of dangers happen in the home. We need to modify that in order to suit his needs. But what happened? That's the typical occupation therapist report. I'm not saying that it's not good, but I'm trying to share the pain point as a caregiver. Is usually when a person want to discharge from the hospital with several like serious diseases, they will make an appointment at the outreach department, which the rehabilitations outreach department. Usually they will assign an occupation therapist to do a site visit at the patient's home. And after, but you know, for this report, actually you may possibly wait for 6 months to 10 months. For my case, because it's very urgent, I wait for 2 weeks. And then when the occupation therapist do the assessment, dangerous assessment, 4 weeks assessment, or connotation level assessment, then they will come up with a report. The report will tell you, hey, the dimension you need to take care, what kind of equipment you need. But you know, because like I employ a service in public hospital, the thing is the occupation therapist can't tell you the exact brand name because he can't do so. But brand actually including experience, quality, and pricing. Such kind of information is lacking in the report. And secondly is about some construction issue. For example, if you want to renovate a Lombardi-free toilet, it actually require a lot of like constructions about electricity, water pipe, and the medical guy actually can provide such advice on site. Thirdly is about design, particularly for those like I would say middle class level elderly household. They may be well educated. They didn't like the handrail, like the medical style. They didn't like that. So around style, design, I think the single discipline as a medical background professional, they can't provide such kind of multidiscipline design. So as a caregiver, or right now we are promoting design thinking. As a caregiver, I really feel the pain. So that after my dad passed away, I have a random idea. Hey, why not I try to remapping the journey and try to close the survey gap. So what was my first of all, I try to do the desktop research, like how large is the problem? Is that the only problem and I encountered, or actually is the problem for all Hong Kong people? That's the figure of 2016. But I'm doing the desktop research in 2014, by the way. But just take a look at the latest figures, not like the aging population, like 16%. But the figure which catch my eyeball is, hey, the number of single elderly household is like 300,000 right now. It will be double by around 10 years. And why it catch my eyeball is, of course, I noticed that yesterday, another speaker talked about the dementia issue in Hong Kong. But you just take a look, like in Hong Kong, we got around 750 75,000 beds in elderly home, and actually 80%, 16% from private and 40 from public. But compare like 25,000 beds and over 300,000 elderly, actually informal home care is dominant. And secondly, for dementia, you can't really be included. You can only like prolong, the connotation level of the dementia patient. But you can see when the age of people prolonged, the percentage of dementia patient actually increase. And secondly, another research saying that they asked the elderly, what's your willingness to stay in your few months of your life? Over 97% actually say, I don't want to stay at home. So the thing is, for policy-wise, we can catch the breaks in elderly home, can't catch up the demand of the aging population, in particularly the issue of dementia. And also for the user behavior, the consumer, the elderly, they actually don't prefer to stay at the elderly home. So aging in life actually should be a big trend in Hong Kong. And we should know, like, there's a big trend. Are we ready for that? Are we aware of that? And how should we respond that as a designer or a social entrepreneur? That's one of our case study when we researching the things. The gentleman, which has a circle in his face, when I interview him, he is 68 years old. He got Parkinson disease and then dementia for 8 years. So he's like such kind of like middle stage dementia patient. Before he got the disease, he actually is a company owner of a second-hand car company. The flat in Hong Kong Center is relatively large, 700 square feet, 3 bedrooms, 1 toilet, 2 living room, and the kitchen. And you will see that he actually sitting in the high seat, detented separately. And also the lady here is his wife. His wife quit his job and take care his husband 7 days, 24 hours. And then what happened is his house. His house didn't went away for around 40 years due to the disease. You can see during the toilet, there's a level difference, and the bath shower area also have a level difference. Due to this like barrier, actually his husband can't go to the toilet, but he tried to settle his leak using different devices and using the elderly Pampers. So so the wife told me, "Hey, Mr. Lui, I really want you to settle my issue because I used to bring my husband to transfer from the bed to the toilet or to the living area. He feels so tired." And secondly, the dignity issue. Actually, the client is still quite smart, but just the environment didn't fit his needs, and it can be avoided, fairly speaking. And thirdly, which inspired me as a design perspective, his wife told me, "Hey, Mr. Lui, by the way, I don't want my home look like a hospital or elderly center, because such kind of handrails remind me that I look like a nurse, a private nurse, rather than a wife." And his wishes look like a home, and he can, although his husband need to sit in some medical equipment, but he want that we can sit together to enjoy dinner, we can sit together to watch televisions. For this case, we helped them to renovate their home after his husband moved in. After around 1.5 months, his husband passed away. So it can. I actually question myself if he do a better preparation when he firstly diagnoses dementia. If he do the renovation or the design interventions come out much earlier, he can enjoy like 6 to 8 years better end of life living or age at home experience. For this case, a little bit regret. He spent the budget and he can only enjoy it for 1.5 months. So we also like do a desktop research, like what's the questions, right? What's the gap? People didn't really aware that. You just take a look about the concern. In short, people thinking about insufficient budget, insufficient support from children, and also they are afraid the renovation because it seems too complicated, and we saw a lot of bad news that those like construction workers cheating or the practice is not that good. So that's why from our team, when we set up this arm, we look about like the background, the team structure of our team. We try to set up a multidiscipline team because as the caregiver perspective, we think that like one-stop solutions or comprehensive advice is critical. Pricing, product quality, and design options. And secondly, is about the transparency and trust, because particularly for elderly, it sounds that like it is about accountability, because you do the renovations, even you install a handrail, you got a lot of safety issues. So how to ensure the process they think you are trustworthy is really important. But that's really hard because Hong Kong generally the consumer is not that friendly. So that's why we choose the social enterprise model instead of commercial model or purely charity, because purely charity model we can't really bring in prove the concept or employ the people, but if too expensive, then we can only serve a little segment. So that's why we choose the social enterprise model. And thirdly is about collaborations, because for furnitures and even electric equipment, we need the involvement of the manufacturers. And last but not least is like how to do the public education. One of the public education we work is we work with other social enterprise empathy. Perhaps you experienced it before, but they introduce a experimental workshop from Taiwan, and usually when an appointment by a family, we will offer experience workshop from the grandkids, the 15 years old children and the grandparents, so that they can experience that and try to figure out the list of their parents or grandparents. Okay. Talking about elderly leaks, we think there's 4 lists, and then I will showcase some design. For physical lists, we think that is about safety, security, and accessibility. That's quite easy to understand, like what long sleep material prevent the 4 weeks of the elderly, and the wheelchair can go whatever in the fat. That's easy. Secondly is about the psychological things, like whether they have dignity and feel about the sense of belonging. And for all people somehow might elect the beauty of interior design of residential project is after the renovation or redesign, will the family member visit the elderly more frequently? Can it enable them to have to build their friends and social networks? Of course, the spiritual list is whether even stay in the room, whether instead of like watching the television, will the elderly person actually try to practice some new learning in their home? For example, whether they can stay at their home to learn to take up some new skills. So we think it should be taken in the consideration. So that's why we try to adapt this model. We are doing an impact in research on our design. That will be a 5 years research, but it guide like what's the impact of our interior design, not only about like the feeling. We try to bake out a list like that, divided by fixtures, the electric and medical item, furnitures, and then we bake out some expected improvement. And how we do that is we try to break that in 4 elements: safe, accessibility. Accessibility is about like if the health of the elderly deteriorating, for example, for some dementia patient, early stage dementia patient, perhaps the cognition level and the balance is still really good. But after 8 to 10 years, perhaps the condition change. Whether the the design is flexible or the layout is flexible to change. And for independency living, like how the design actually support our client can do some work independently, particularly for the stroke care person, because we have some case that the kid good enough to hire 2 workers to support the work of the stroke elderly patient. But the thing is, if you avoid him or her to do the thing by herself, he actually losing the chance for rehab opportunity. So that's what we suggest. And for this list, I didn't have time to go in detail, but you can take it as a reference. So different elements, I just quickly go through, including the handrails. I think the left-hand side is about more handrail with the furnitures and with the directions function. While the right-hand side, those are handrail is more like medical driven. And you will see when you doing interview with the elderly client, sometimes they really hate those like medical style handwells. And for safety list, I just want to show you this picture. This gentleman, 88 years old. You can see actually the workers transfer him to the to the shower tube and take the shower every day, and that's actually a lot of waste here. And of course, that's the simple long-bearing free toilet design. It's the cheaper version, which we can do that. But I think there's a lot of opportunity. What's the design of even a long-bearing free toilet? Because such kind of equipment sometimes is, lack of choices. Okay. And finishing about the one shift finishing, about safety issues, and for the handwell outside the bed, there's also lack of selections. But for the elderly, there are low back spine is weak. They really need some support to get up. Of course, some additional design can help, but it's not nice for furniture design. Whether we can include such kind of functions in the furnitures, it helps. And there's actually we're also doing some lighting about motion sensors. If we get out of the bed, the toilet, and even the lighting system, such kind of system is easy. But we also integrated a feature is that if the sensor get any problem, the lighting get any problem, actually the back end notice that, and we can send repair workers to help the single elderly household to change that. Accessibility, about the dimension, of course you can refer that in the manual of the bearing free guideline by the building department. But how about kitchen cabinet? It's about self-dependency. You can save the energy of the elderly to get the equipment they need. Okay, so some case reference. There's actually is a house, relatively large, 1,100 square feet. Is a house of a retired professor, but he got a stroke, quite serious. He need to rely on a wheelchair for 2 years, as per the medical advices. But although the fact is large, but there's a lot of issue, storage issue, the toilet he can't really get on. It's not barrier free, and a lot of books because it's children actually moving out. So the purpose of the room actually can be redefined. And this room actually is a guest room, but a lot of stuff. Usually, no matter the economic background, usually, the elderly's apartment it got a lot of stuff. I got a case that you even can't open the bedroom because it's full of the materials. So sometimes the interior designer is not only providing design, but also advice, like how to imagine your future needs and what's the opportunity for in-house activity instead of just like reading, watching the television. So for this case, the design, first of all, we try to redesign the dining table so that the wheelchairs still sit in the chairman spaces, and also they can watch the television together, have a delegated area. And we reserve a bedroom that to invite his grandson to stay overnight during weekends or vacation. So we design the table with appropriate height so that he can do the revisions or reading with his grandson together using the table. And then we design a rehab room so that the physical, I mean, the occupation therapist or the physical therapist can come here, to his house to do some trainings. We also provide a walking training area. And last but not least, longevity toilet. And for the bed, because he need to use the medical bed. So the space actually, it took a larger size. The design, because he like Charlie style, so we try to keep the style he like. And the thing is, he want to, using the coffee machine by himself. So we provide such kind of features, non-barrier toilets. He can do the independent activity himself, and then there's the training corner. That because it's stroke case, the handheld actually the physical therapist will do the walking training. And what it make him attractive, we try to put the family photos and his past achievement in the wall here. Another example is also a stroke case person. The similarity is they got a lot of storage issues, and then the ladies actually also got stroke. He can't really get on the bathtub area. So and also the cabinet actually bought the wall. The wheelchair can't really access that. But you can see that they like using such kind of 2-level bed mainly due to the storage issue. So how to, enlarge the storage as well as providing like functionality. So that's the design, the breadth, the storage area and the rehab area. And then I will show you like what's the design for the toilet, the accessible toilet. And then that's the room of his mom. This area actually provide the walking training and some upper limb exercise training. For this area is about medicine distribution notice board. And the storage, we suggest a vertical and transparent texture. And we support by the hand valve so that he can get out of her bed more easily. Okay, such kind of design is mainly focusing like middle class or lower middle class people. So how about the underserved community? We do another pilot project focusing those like underserved elderly living in living in the public housing. By research, there are about 10,000 single elderly households who are living in the public housing in Hong Kong over 75 years old. Okay, so I will see, and of course, this 9,000 is under the CIAS scheme. But what's the issue is because some really old public housing flat, they got a lot of maintenance issues, and even the lift for some old public housing, like every 3-4 accessed by the escalator. So the thing is, usually the social workers may help them to transform from A flat to B flat. But the thing is, usually those government funding won't cover the furnitures and won't cover the renovation. So our project is like, what's the minimal budget to renovate or redesign a house for a single elderly household who have the least to move out of his flat because of his mobility issue. So that's one of the case. So Heaven is also got a stroke, and he need to use the wheelchair when he get out of his home. But and this is a new flat. It's relatively large. But the thing is, the door actually I want them the wheelchair to come in, and this kind of level different also provide the barrier for him to access the flats. So what we do that, first of all, we're using the 3D printing issues, we pin the RAM. Instead of the aluminum RAM, we use some like plastic, strong plastic RAM. It can be pinned by different colors. So I would say that it's about the color tone issues, look more lighter. And secondly, we work with other makers. We try to design a electric RAM so that because the corridor actually is the fire area. You can't really fix a RAM in the corridor. So we use an electric one so that he can use the wheelchair to get out and get in his home using the remote control. That's another story. I can't share with you here, but there's a lot of bargain between the housing society and the fire department. It's about some like regulations issue, but we fixed that eventually. And of course the long sleeve material and the wall. Why we pick a color conscious one is usually the eyesight of the elderly relatively weak, so we try to have a conscious on that. And then lighting, and by research we work with by the advice of a research professor who studied dementia, the wall painting, the accessible of some like electro graphic actually will increasing the feel of well-being of himself. So we also do a wall painting here. And I still got 5 minutes. And as I mentioned, like the two case study I showcase is about middle class interior design or the unserved community, the interior design project in the public housing. And around 2 years ago, our team start to think that, hey, for those like elderly household, although you provide a really nice space for him, but how about the service? Because when he stay at his home, if he get some accident, who will notice that and provide service? And secondly, if he will get out of his home anyway, but if he got early stage dementia and he lack of the support of the family members who provide the support. So that's why in 2017, we use our own resources and we set up a technology arm. And that's our roadmap, like including GPS location, is about outdoor positioning, e-health, system is more about how to track his profile and for smart medicine boards, and also for the safety issue. I will tell you a few pilot in the last 5 minutes. For the first pilot we did that actually is in Macau. We held the Macau government to improve the second generation emergency alarm system. It actually serving like 2,000 dementia elderly in Macau. So how it works, just like you can imagine, like those elderly actually, sorry, you will see such kind of news in it, just some dementia patient getting lost, and after few weeks or few days, you find perhaps he die or get hurt. So the fact that the in the market there's a lot of device like that. Sorry, the device like that. But usually such kind of device only your family members can notice the alert. But just take an example. For example, if I live in Twin Moon, I'm doing the talk here, and my father get lost, I actually has a gap here to provide timely support. So our system actually is connecting these watches, which is GPS and location based, and we design an app that we can track the location of the elderly and imply the geofencing feature, so that if the elderly leaving the delegated area or going to some dangerous area in Macau, is they are going to cross the border, then the back end, the call center will getting the alert. By getting the alert, we will, the call center people will try to open the log sheet and check his previous track record. And then we will decide whether there's an urgent case or emergency case or non-emergency case. And then we can call the elderly through the watches or make the watch sound like emergency to arouse attention of the community. And then, of course, if there's an urgent case, the NGO will deploy the search team to search the elderly. So that's one of the, system. We do that for in Macau, but in Hong Kong, we are using a different approaches. It's a community-based approaches, and we also extend that for those like home safety issue. For example, we install such kind of devices. It's the motion sensor, emergency sensors, and for a flat like that, around 200 square feet, we install around 10 to 12 sensors. And then we design a back-end apps to connect social workers, the elderly, the family members of the elderly. But the good thing for this project is we connect 3 young old residents of the same building to support one old gentleman. And if there's an emergency, getting alert, the main door will also have an alert signal. So the neighbor can lock the door and provide support. And the thing is, we actually save a life of 92 years old people. That's Professor Wong Hong, and then we save him. The thing is, because what the most expensive one is, some kind of motion sensor is really good, but you can imagine what's the value? The value actually is to save that people's life. So the last mile is quite important from my perspective. Who provide the last mile service? If they really can't pay for that, how we mobilize the social capital or the resources of the community so that we can integrate the service model. Meanwhile, this year we also connect with other science park tie-up. You may see this machine. I'm not sure whether you see that before. It's called Tammy. Perhaps he talked to your institute before. This Tammy is actually it's not designed for elderly. It's designed for property management group or hotel group as a robot. Location-based, it can do the escorting and communications. But you saw the news that all elderly home suspend visit before. So we have to show the robot to the elderly home, and we also combine this robot to our emergency setting. We're doing the pilot right now, just like the robot. If we integrate the AI algorithm, if the robot sawing the elderly fall down, actually we will alert and then we call the emergency service. But this robot also is a lifestyle product. It can support the telecommunication between the elderly and the family members. And we also actually did that for light up a insurance company for them to do the volunteering work. Full virtual volunteering service. Okay, so sorry, I actually over one, so I stopped my presentation here. If you want to know more about our work, feel free to approach us by email or we can further discuss that. Thank you.
Please remain on stage. Please remain on stage. Yeah, thank you. May we now invite Ms. Tam and get connected with Richard again for our panel discussion.
Okay. Hi. Hi, Richard. Can you hear us?
Hi, how are you
Hi.
doing?
Hi. Good. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Like we have learned a lot about like human-centered design, and now we have two guests here in Hong Kong. My name is Edwin. I'm the moderator, and we have Ms. Tam Angelique, the director of SADA in Hong Kong, and Lawrence, like a social enterprise director in Hong Kong. And but for the last we have around 20 minutes, right, for this last session. I have found some like important words from different project sharing. From Richard, I have heard the word insight a lot. Insight. And from Lawrence, I have heard you were your team was tackling the word surface gap. And I think Angelique here, from your organization, like you invited us, the design thinking team, to tackle that issue about, well, a surface innovation. So I like of three experts here. Could you share more to us how, like we have different design students in front of us, from fashion design, product design, and visual communication. I think that word insights, or how to find out the needs of users or from the organization, is very important to our students to start a project. So could you share with us that concept about insights or surface gap, or even to find out, to identify the problem of an organization? Maybe I invite Richard to share with us first.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Very good.
Great. So yeah, I talk about insight an awful lot, and I think the really important thing as a designer, no matter what discipline of design it is to really understand the context of the problem. So as I alluded to on the slide, if you don't understand the context of the problem, then you really can't create a solution. So the best way to kind of consider this is if you think about the life cycle of a project from A to B. As designers, we always have a natural instinct to create on the very early stage. But it's really important to consider, as I say, the insight. So that can be research, talking to people, engaging with the actual user or the intended user. So if it's a medical device, it's a surgeon. If it's a dementia related, maybe it's talking to patients or clinicians. If it's interior design, it's talking to that, that specific target user. The important thing is not to assume anything. So whilst as being designers, we want to be creative, it's really important at the start of a project is to get this insight. If you think about a project from start to finish, when we work on projects, the design aspect actually starts about halfway through, because the fundamental aspects of this is to create a design, whether it's a product or an interior design or whatever it is design related. If you cannot fundamentally understand and get the insight, then your design inputs for the start of the design aspect could be compromised. So for us as designers, it's always very peculiar when we talk to clients and we say, in the case of a medical device, we want to come and spend some time in theatre and observe the context of the problem. So for interior design, it'd be spending time, in apartments and in public areas to observe and get insight and knowledge. And I think that way you can truly understand and articulate the brief. I think as designers, we have an obligation not to rush into the design too early, because the problem there is that your design inputs or what you think is going to be the context of the problem might not actually be accurate. And of course, the quality of a design input is incumbent on the quality of the design output. So if you've not got good quality input, then your output will be compromised. So, you know, I call it insight. It's just a word that I use a lot, but it's really important as designers to really, you know, see, listen, talk, discuss, interview, observe, take photographs, and then try and immerse yourself in the context of the problem.
Okay, thank you, Richard. I think that's another word like comes up to us as engagement, that you use that word again, to engage with the user. Thank you. And may I invite Angelique, like how do you identify like the issue or the ping point in your organization?
First of all, thank you very much, Richard and Lawrence. We've learned a lot today and very insightful. There are realities that showing us our key performance indicators and all that, showing us our market share is kind of declining, although actually next year is our 60th anniversary of SADA, and we've been the longest in history in Hong Kong for voluntary rehabilitation drug services, and also we are the largest, we're still the largest, but the thing is there's no room for complacency, and over the last 5 years or so, we've been seeing a decline in market share and also slightly increasing rate of incompletion of the program rates. And we also see the other service providers are getting more creative and innovative, and competitions there. People do have a choice, although we do provide voluntary and free services, but people do have a choice. So the real pain point is we stuck too much to the past of our old success formula, I would say. That's the major pain point. And we are so proud of our heritage and tradition that we thought we know what are good for our clients. And we keep doing more of that. And I do realize that becomes our weakness. You know, as we say, our strengths are also sometimes our weaknesses. In this case, I see more and more our strengths are actually our weaknesses, because we are very slow and reluctant to change and progress with the needs of the clients. At the keynote speech, Richard, and also we learned from the workshop from Eric that to mention there are cultural and societal factors that are affecting our clients, and also various stakeholders, decision makers, parents of the drug abusers, our clients, and we all are affected by that. And I think we have our blind spots are growing larger and larger, so to say. And that's why Michael and Edwin and the team of HKDI came to our rescue, I would say.
Thank you. I think as a director and also a leader of a not-for-profit organization, that vision for change is very important. And of course, some technical term like the performance indicators, where you talk about. So I think those are the areas as like our audience here, our students, that when we like approach a design problem, that to find out the insights, to engage with the user, and also have a vision about for the change. I think that's important. And let's turn to Lawrence. Like you talk a lot about like to bridge the surface gap. How do you do that actually?
I think for entrepreneurship, social entrepreneurship is talking about like how you find the consumer pain point. For my case, because I'm a previous caregiver, so I really experienced that, and I feel the pain. But you know, but that's a different like consumer journey. For my cases, like we live in an old flat with single children, and then late stage caring patient. But there's a lot of disease, different kind of service gap and budget. So for me, is I wear a social issues, but I really need to do some research and map the journey, and also to estimate the scale, because sometimes I think that's kind of issue actually happen in the market for several decades. I should say. But people just like didn't aware that, or they didn't aware the business opportunity, or the cost is too high for deploy multidisciplinary profession. How can you lower the cost or have a better delivery? So I think the service gap, from my perspective, you really need to know the problem, the social problem, and also the problem for the business or service model. And then you make an option like how to slightly improve that before you get sufficient resources, either paid by the user or subsidized by the government, or a hybrid model. And then you enhancing the service model. So that's how we work, because for us, we only using like 100,000 Hong Kong dollars as a startup capital. Just after 3 years of our attachment, we apply government funding and secure impact investor to scale our operations.
Okay, thank you for like that very rich like content about like how to tackle the surface gap. And I've heard that word empathy. Like even in your presentation, you have that word at the very like beginning of the presentation. So I think getting the insights, engaging with empathy, and also have a vision about a problem, a design problem is very important to us. And at the last question here, I would like three of our guests to share. To encourage our students, most of the audience here are students, and what competences are you looking for in this next generation for them to like to do a well-being design or to do innovation? Competence, and any one of the competence, Richard.
I think for me it's eyes and ears.
Eyes and ears.
To see and listen, and to not have preconceived ideas, and to articulate what the problem statement is, and to filter what is important and what is not, because it is impossible to design anything by committee. So it's really important as a designer. So I see myself as a designer as being a catalyst, a portal. So I facilitate information in, and I kind of compost it, and I interrogate it, and then I evaluate it, and then the outputs are my filtering mechanism. So it's important to, at the very start, divergent thinking, listen, talk, see, and then filter, and then be able to kind of articulate something which is going to add value to the user.
Thank you. I like one of the role as a catalyst. A designer as a catalyst is very important. Ears and eyes. Okay, thank you very much, Richard. And maybe Lawrence first. Competence.
I would say because I actually designed a great model to have a reference for me to hire during the recruitment. So I would say empathy, communication, and accountability. For empathy is you won't get all the experience. So how can you really humble, just like Richard, hearing, eyes and hearing, and then you can really step in the shoes to understand the challenge or the hurdles of the user. So it's really critical for me. And secondly, why communication is critical for like agent design, because from our experience, those elderly, particularly the over 85 years old, they can't really say their needs. Or secondly, because the elderly may be quite close-minded. How can the interior design to inspire them, to communicate with them, and to visualize that for options? So that's actually a soft skill, not only design skill, but as communication skill with empathy. Last but not least, why accountability is also critical is about code of practice. Like you really design from a person well-being from the last journey or last 10 to 15 years. It didn't really, it can have a better design. The stakeholder, including the children or the family member of the elderly, and even the elderly can have a better memory. That's actually is a bad thing for client. Yes. For my cases, because I didn't really handle it well, so I actually get depression for a year. So I would say I encourage like the missions of those of the next generation interior design. That's my my wish and on them.
Thank you. So an accountable catalyst with empathy. So I think this is very important to us. And last but not least, Anjali, what do you expect from them?
I do agree. Being empathetic is very important. I would just like to add that similarly, being compassionate and considerate, i.e. the core of being human and customer or client oriented. That's the most important thing. And to be considerate in a wider sense is to consider the benefits of, or the benefits to the key stakeholders who do have a part to play, including, or maybe even your suppliers. I mean, together with collaboration, then things will become successful. And the second category of competency, I think is really, really important, is be brave, be courageous, so that you don't worry too much and don't have self-defeating ideas, and that will get you to the can-do attitude, and then good things will happen, and you'll be able to innovate freely and have breakthroughs. I think that's very important.
So a brave, compassionate catalyst with empathy. So I think this is very interesting that our three guests didn't talk about. You gotta have good techniques in Photoshop, good techniques in 3D mapping. But to be a good designer or a good innovator, you got to be brave, compassionate. You got to be be a facilitator, a catalyst with the good quality of empathy. Thank you very much. These are very variable insights to us today. Thank you, Richard and Lawrence and Anjali, for giving us very variable advice today. And thank you. I think that's all for today. And we will have tomorrow, Friday. Okay, we have Friday's lectures, and we hope you will join us together. Thank you. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Lawrence and Anjali. And Nikki.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Lawrence. Thank you, Ms. Tam and Edwin. As Edwin just mentioned, we will have same time tomorrow, 4:30 to 6 p.m. We will have another two lectures on big data and design system design. So hope to see you again. Thank you.